Well, hello and welcome to another episode of More Perfect Marketing. It's David Baer here. Today we're going to be talking about, actually right before I hit record, today's guest said two of my favorite words together, systems and process. And I know while you don't necessarily think those two words are sexy, I promise you they are. And you're going to find out exactly why, because we're going to be talking about how to look at systems and process when it comes to building the components of bringing money into your business. And to help me really illustrate that is somebody who's done it very successfully with her own business and now serving her clients doing this online in all the places that are, expected and some of the places like social channels that I never touch that I'm going to learn alongside you guys today as we listen to Toccara Karizma, who's going to walk us through the work that she's done, starting with her own business, as I said, and now with clients' businesses as well. Toccara, welcome.
Thank you so much, David, for having me. I'm excited. I find systems and processes just as sexy as you. So no
Excellent.
shame in
Excellent.
that.
So you currently run a full service, digitally focused agency. You're working mostly in the e-commerce space, but I want to talk a little bit about what you did before that really prepared you for the work that you now do on behalf of clients. So let's start there.
Yes. So thank you so much. I love sharing these stories. And I do have a little bit of an unfair advantage because I went to school for business economics and I'm the daughter of two entrepreneurs.
Mm.
So business was a very big part of my life. And in 2007, I did start my own e-commerce business when Facebook was like 20 million users. Shopify didn't exist. I mean, buying on a mobile phone was like 0.5%, so it wasn't the way the world was. So again, I had an unfair advantage of being right in front of a trend every time I've done something. And so I learned quite a bit about how to grow a business. I didn't care so much about the product fulfillment side of it, but I loved building a business and I knew I could do that really well. So fast forward several years and I have now been helping other businesses grow their own businesses. And because my passion is e-commerce, that's where we like to really focus a lot of our energy. And because e-commerce can be so massive, we do rely on a lot of systems and processes and project management and software to get us to those big goals for those clients.
So I want to talk a little bit more about what you did in your business, what you were selling, what lessons you learned there to inform the work that you did. But before any of our listeners say, "Oh, this is about e-commerce. This doesn't apply to me," I want to say, stop, and listen, because there's lessons that come from places that are different from your business model, and I want to make sure that we attempt to apply some of those lessons broadly today. And so that was instructions for Toccara as much as for you to really talk about what we're going to discuss in a broader sense, and the fact that even though you may not be taking traffic from the same online sources, you may not be using the same type of, I'm going to use one of those annoying marketing words, funnel structure in your business, that there's ideas here that you should think, how can I do my version of this? So, okay, Toccara, what was the business that you were in? Was it clothing? Is that right?
Yes, it
Okay.
was baby clothing. And I was going to say, absolutely 100% agree with you. There is nothing that I will talk about today that does not relate to a service-based business. Everything we've done can be parlayed over to service-based. So I love that you mentioned that. So whatever I say, you can think in your mind of your own example or your own business as it relates to you, because the same practices and principles apply. And yes, I did start in clothing. And what I liked about service-based business was that I didn't have to invest in a lot of money up front for inventory. Like that was a big one.
Mm.
And that was risk. Whereas with an agency, for example, I can control my expenses and my income based on my client work, right? And that's beautiful. That doesn't really exist in e-commerce.
Yeah.
So the fact that I can hire on more team members as I grow my portfolio of clients is a big deal. The fact that I can have a virtual agency versus a brick and mortar commercial facility. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but that saved a lot of fixed costs.
Mhm.
So this service-based model made a lot of sense to me. And it was solving much bigger problems than a $5 onesie could solve. And as Alex Hormozy says, solve rich people's problems, right? And that's what we do. And that model for me was where I was really challenged and pushed and could apply what I know to do best in a way that I could really scale other businesses and then didn't have to worry about all the fixed costs and inventory and issues, customer service that is e-commerce.
Yeah. And you mentioned Alex Hormozy, and I'll quickly point out for those of our audience who are a little bit older, he's the Dan Kennedy, I guess, of these days. Dan Kennedy was talking about selling to the affluent and how to do that. So very very similar principle there as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Dan Kennedy's great.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about a story that you were starting to tell me before we hit record about a particular campaign and a process of moving people into you specifically were talking about a Facebook group, and I wonder if you can sort of give us some backstory on this, what you were trying to accomplish, and then what you built to accomplish that.
Yes. So we had a client that had a large engagement with their following, and it could be for any business. Their mission was to make women feel beautiful in their skin. They happen to sell bikinis, but you might happen to sell, business growth books or marketing services. And so our strategy was to get more leads for this client. We wanted to grow the email list. Everyone wants leads. That's probably one of our biggest struggles as business owners is, how do I get new clients? How do I get leads? Well, the same is true for any other business. How do I get new customers? So we decided that because what was working for this client was the client herself in a lot of ways. So as service-based businesses, a lot of us are the face of our companies.
Mhm.
She too was the face of her business. We decided that we would just go kind of all in on this Facebook group concept. This is a few years ago. So mind you, the Facebook landscape looked a little different. But what we started doing was creating marketing campaigns around joining this Facebook group, which did not say the business name on it. So if you could imagine going into, I don't know, a Facebook group and you are a lawyer or something, and it says your name, like legal firm on the Facebook group, no one wants to join that Facebook group, just like no one wants to join a newsletter. Instead, you might say like how to deal with divorce or like the pain points, right? So the Facebook group was always around a pain point. So you can think in your own business, what are these pain points that I solve? Those are the things that people are searching. And so we made it a group about female empowerment and feeling like comfortable in your skin. And we had to grow it on a very large scale. We actually grew it very quickly within a year or two, 90,000 members, and grew the email list to 345,000 subscribers. And to do that kind of thing, you cannot do it manually. So we started looking into a lot of automation and tools and software to make this so much easier. When you're adding 500 people a day to a Facebook group and you're actually reviewing to make sure that they're a good fit because you want to keep it a high value group, you can't do that manually. So that required for us to really think outside the box. And in the end, the ultimate goal, we all want leads for the ultimate goal, which is to make more money, right? To get more clients, get more customers. By the time we had started growing this group to its size, this client was able to go in and just do a 2-hour event. This is when live events were a really big deal too. This is, remember, a couple years ago. And within 2 hours, they would make multiple 6 figures because of the way that we grew the group, the email strategy behind it, the ads. And I can go into all sorts of really cool, fun strategies on how this works with human psychology and how we segmented things. But this can get you kind of excited about your own business and think about, what are the pain points that my clients are dealing with? How do I create community around that? And then kind of working back, like from your goal, like we just talked about. We really want to get clients, new customers. How do we get them to know, like, and trust us in the beginning? What tool are we going to use? And then how are we going to kind of automate the process? Because eventually it's to get to scale, you can't do it manually.
You brought up a few things that I want to circle back on, and I want to circle back first on one of the last things you mentioned there, which was human psychology, because I think this is something we often don't think about very much. Certainly, business owners aren't when they're thinking, "How do I get leads?" They're not thinking about what do I need somebody to think, feel, or what do they need to believe at a certain point in order to take the next step. So can you talk a little bit either in the scenario that you've just been laying out for us or in another project, sort of how do you think about what what we need to get somebody to be thinking or feeling at a certain point in a campaign?
Yeah. And I think, and I'm sure you know of these two experts in the space, and you probably recommend them, but Robert Cialdini's sales psychology book is absolutely amazing. I recommend it highly. And the other person who's really good at understanding human psychology is Chris Voss.
Mm,
Never Seen the Difference, one of the top FBI negotiators in the world. And their two books honestly have changed my life. And I've dove very far into human psychology because sales really is psychology. It really is. It's amazing. And so when we start thinking about the way our human mind works, which is naturally when someone approaches us with something, just think of your own experience scrolling mindlessly on Facebook or Instagram, and you see a sales ad from someone you've never known and they're already pitching you, or you get a pitch in your LinkedIn inbox, right? Or in your Instagram inbox, and immediately red flags like go up, right? And you're like, this person wants to scam me. I don't trust them, or their results. 100% normal. Everyone does it. So in order to break that barrier, there's many steps that go into this to get that person to know, like, and trust you. So some of the things that we can do is, for example, altering our media and our content to the platform. So as soon as you see a commercial, something that looks very beautiful on Instagram or Facebook, your mind automatically, before you know it, says this is a commercial they're trying to sell to me. But if you go on with your iPhone and you're just really organic and you look like my friend I didn't know, and you're just telling a story, storytelling is huge. And I know that you know this, David, but storytelling is huge and relating to our client base. And the other way that we do this, even through tools, is we will use tools that will scrape pages of websites with reviews for if our product, but let's say if our product or service doesn't have enough reviews, we will go to bigger companies that we aspire to be like, where they have tons of reviews. And we will actually scrape those reviews and we will see the common words that are used over and over again. And human psychology tells us when we use verbiage that our clients are using to express their pain points or what they're going through, or just talk to one another, it again kind of lowers that barrier with them, and it speaks in their language. We would even do this for clients that had high pain points where there were forums dedicated to these pain points. So let's say
mm,
again, the divorce attorney, there could be a lot of divorce forums or Reddits, right, about this topic, where we could really look at the language people are using and start talking to them on their level. Because a lot of the times when we talk about marketing and automation, we forget these are humans, like they're people behind this number, this conversion, right? This subscriber, it's actually a human like you and me. And they're looking to solve their problem. And they're always coming from a position of pain or pleasure. That was a tongue twister. Say that 5 times fast. But that really is what it is. They usually are wanting to get to pleasure or get out of pain. And so those are the things that we need to start talking about to kind of break down those barriers. And there's other like really cool things you can do from psychology standpoint, or scarcity, and some things I'm sure a lot of the listeners know that are these basics taught across the board, but they are used because they work. So reciprocity is another one, or social proof is another one. These are things that are covered in Robert Cialdini's book, which is why I highly recommend it. But he goes through example after example after example of how this works in the real world and how companies have used it for a long
And
time.
his two books, in case you're wondering, since his name is hard to
Yeah.
sometimes spell, is so Influence, and then the other one is called Persuasion. Both excellent books, and yeah, there's so much insight in both of those. You gave an example there of what I call social eavesdropping, which is like going and scraping, what people are talking about to get sentiment, but also to get verbiage, which I love. And I think it's a hugely powerful way to make that connection that you're talking about making with someone because you're using their language. And so I highly recommend that, folks, regardless of what business you're in, right, that you emulate this kind of practice. It's something that has worked for decades and decades, long before there was social media, right? Copywriters were paying attention to how people talked about their pain and reflected that in their copy. So, Toccara, I think that's great. I want to circle back to one other thing that you said, and I want to push back on something a little bit, because you said that one of the things that we all business owners are always focused on, and you and I know that it's not necessarily where the real problem lies, is needing or wanting more leads. And so I'll give you an opportunity to circle back on that and clarify, because I think you and I both would agree that leads are not always and usually are not the core problem that they have. So I
Mhm.
wonder if you can speak a little bit to sort of your experience on that front as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just because, I mean, it's very important to focus on number one. Let's just talk about the quality of the leads, right? Like that's a big deal. So if I come out and say I was getting leads for 50 cents each, it's like, well, who cares? Were they actually buyers? Did they care to buy? And is the business set up correctly, the business model and the business owner, to take it from lead to close, right? That's another big issue where agencies almost can be the scapegoat, where you could very well be bringing in very high quality leads, but the system is broken for your client. The client system is broken. There's no one to like throw the football to catch it and take it down the field. And so this is why for my agency personally, we audit everything of a clients before we take them on. And most clients we don't take on, even if we go through the process of pre-qualifying leads, like we won't even get on a discovery call if they don't meet certain criteria.
Mm.
It's just to save them time and to save us time. We can't help them. We don't want to offer help if we can't help them. But beyond that, making sure that this business has a way to take those leads and actually close them. And if they don't, and you can provide that service, great. That's what we do as an omnichannel agency. In a lot of ways, we provide all the way from start to finish close. But they have to have that in place. If they don't, it's not going to work. If the leads are not coming in for the right reasons, it's not going to work. If you're getting a ton of traffic to a website, we had a client who, because we also do SEO, was getting so much traffic, but based on a viral keyword,
Mm.
had nothing to do with what they were selling. So they were getting the wrong type of traffic to their website. So we actually had the job of retraining Google what their website was actually all about, because Google thought it was one thing, but that was not what they were selling.
Yeah.
It was just like a low ball strategy. So it's really important that you're appealing to the right people. And just to kind of loop in what we were talking about with speaking the language of your clients, I want to share that with the bikini
Hmm.
client. And when we were doing a lot of media and human psychology and relating to them, we would only use ads after tons of testing. And we spent millions of dollars on ads. That the ads that performed the best were the raw, real customers in the bikinis, beautiful as they are, a real mom, a real woman, and very raw looking. The kinds of engagement that those ads would get and the clicks and the sales would outperform every other ad that was very commercial and perfect. So it again goes to show you that when you're appealing, like when you're attracting the right leads with your media or your verbiage, it makes it a lot easier to convert them in the long run, because they're going to be connected to your content in
Hmm.
that way, and it'll speak to them.
There was a phrase that was used long ago, probably, I don't know, 20 something years ago, when I was first involved in online advertising and web design stuff. Somebody said, ugly converts. And I think to a certain extent, whether it's ugly or it's raw or it's more accessible because you can identify with them, right? The glossy, perfectly designed website or ad is often not as accessible to the person who is, trying to work their way through solving their problems. So I think that your point, is very well taken, and it's reminds me of the point that you made a little bit earlier in terms of the social content that looks more like organic social content as well, but you're using it strictly for advertising purposes, that there's an accessibility, that there's a connection there.
Absolutely. And I see businesses making this mistake too with even planning photo shoots or models, or, again, we can use a lawyer example, we can use a plastic surgeon, whatever that looks like. If, let's say, a lawyer predominantly works with people in their 40s to 60s, for whatever reason, let's just say that's their ideal clientele, but all of their marketing media has beautiful 20-year-olds on it,
Yeah.
you are not attracting your ideal client. You really have to use people in your ads and in your marketing and storytelling in your emails that actually look like your ideal client. And we can relate this to e-commerce too. We had an e-commerce client that their predominant age range of buyers was 45 to 65 males, but
Hmm.
they were using 20-year-old males because 20-year-old males look great as
Yep.
models, right? But that, if I saw an ad with someone who's not my age speaking to me, it wouldn't click. So human psychology is so powerful in these ways that we need to see things that are relatable to us.
There, you've reminded me of another. I don't remember what it was. A Viagra kind of pill. And the language used in the ad was really targeting like a much younger audience about the kind of energy and excitement in the bedroom that they would be having, and that's not what the target audience, which is much older, is even thinking about what an intimate experience is like at that point in their life. So it's even not just the imagery, but also the copy.
Absolutely. And even we can even take this one step further with speaking about all the steps that we took to build, this huge email list and get these kinds of conversions in group. On the landing page of the opt-in, we tested many different things. We removed all buttons except for join the Facebook community. That was it. And what we did is on that page, we would take screenshots with the permission of the people in the screenshots from the community, of them again in their raw form, raw bikinis, with what they wrote, like this really human message that would get 800 likes, 200 comments, and you would see it. We would take the screenshot very raw. Didn't look professional at all. And we shared a few of those so that people understood, again, using social proof, join over 80,000, other women like you. So they understood that this was a community that was very supportive. And so that's why you see that on a lot of sales pages for agencies or marketers or service-based businesses, where they'll put a lot of those screenshots from Facebook groups or texts, because it's so believable. It's like you can see yourself doing that. It adds authenticity to everything. So it's always a good idea to kind of have that raw element in there. And I think consumers want that more and more these days.
There's an element to the campaign that you've been talking about that so there's a scale. There was like an exponential growth that you were discussing from the Facebook group to the email list size. But there's sometimes topics that are not ones that I think lend themselves well to a structure like what we're talking about, particularly things where people are not comfortable sharing or being part of a community where they're actually identifying themselves in front of others. And I wonder, how do you identify like when this is the right formula and when this is the wrong formula?
Exactly. And I do what I do. I have a couple answers to that, but I always will lead with any training is not every platform is perfect for you. So the biggest thing is, where do your ideal clients hang out? Where do they go to find you? So we get a lot of businesses. I'll give you a perfect example. One was they had an RV park, and there was a festival near the RV park, and they wanted to put Facebook ads together to attract these people that were going to be going to this festival near the RV park. And we said, no. If someone wants to stay in RV park near the location of the festival, they're going to Google and they're searching RV parks for the city, right? That your money would be completely wasted on Facebook. Or another example of a client who was a sod client, they sold sod and
Mhm.
wanted to do a bunch of Pinterest advertising. Well, Pinterest is 80% females. His clientele were 80% males. It's like, that's not a fit. So one is, Facebook groups are not for everyone. Absolutely not. It is one of the only places with all the popular social media platforms that you can still have community. Instagram doesn't really have community in the same way. TikTok doesn't have community in the same way. Like if you want community, it's Facebook. So that's one thing to consider. And the other thing to consider, which has really helped us, is we have, many years ago, I started a nonprofit for moms. And what made them feel very safe in an environment like that was to have a way to ask us anonymous questions. Now, since then, we created a whole link and a spreadsheet. We've had over like 1,300 questions just before the normal anonymous question function came out on Facebook in the last like couple of years. That didn't exist when we started this. And it gave them a safe way to ask a question without being outed.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a topic that, especially a local communities are very engaged. One of the highest engaged communities you can get are local communities. So a lot of the times everyone knows everyone in our small towns, right? And so if they are having a problem or an issue, they don't want all their neighbors to know and spill the tea, right, to everyone. So we like to give them that safety and comfort through either our link, which means we don't even see who's asking the question. It truly is anonymous through a Google form, or they can go to Facebook and use the anonymous functionality in there, but the moderators or the admins will also see their name attached to that anonymous question. So the admins will see who they are, but the rest of the group won't. And then you can actually, let's say that question's posted, you can go in as the original poster and engage, and it'll still keep you anonymous. It'll say anonymous poster. So those are some ways that we can kind of get around this, where it's like, is this appropriate for me? And if it's a topic that's hard for people to talk about and feel comfortable about, then this is how we can kind of approach this.
Yeah, I love the fact that you've given thought to that and then built a system to be able to accommodate it. I want to go back to the comments you made a few minutes ago um, about the lead gen piece of it, and wanted to understand how automation fits into some of the problem that you were discussing of, poor lead management or lack of, effective conversion, and where can automation support solving some of that?
Yeah, such a good question, because sometimes, I mean, I'm in my 40s, so I'm lucky enough. I'm not as tech savvy as my kids, let me tell you, but I am definitely more tech savvy than my parents. And so sometimes, when we're in a place in our career and we're doing well and we're starting to think of advertising and spending these dollars, we may not know all the technology that's at our fingertips to use to make things a lot easier for us. So one, I want to say before I even mention this, if this feels overwhelming for you, hire someone to do it. Get anyone else to do it. Don't stop this just because it's overwhelming. So that's just what I wanted to say. But some of the tools that you can use, that even we use in our agency, are tools like Calendly to book appointments, get them automatically on your calendar, then get notifications to that person, right? So booking right away. We obviously use things like the Google Drive, which is really important to us, Zoom, which has a lot of functionality in there. There's other calendar programs other than Calendly. There's other great ones that even have more functionality than what we use there. There's ManyChat for even lead gen and then confirming things. There are chat support flows, so a lot of chat support apps that you can use on your website that will automate different, what we call flows or sequences, that can even step in and answer questions that you might not be available to answer. So, and then of course, the daddy of all automation is email. Email makes everything you do a million times faster and more efficient, especially when you have flows built out around this. So, and flows with a lot of email CRMs these days are also attached to phone numbers. So there are systems where you can tag a certain quote unquote lead. That tag goes to your sales team with their phone number. That sales team is calling them within 2 minutes, having a sales call. Like, there's so many different processes, but if you're missing that, and a lot of agencies who train other agencies for like high ticket sales, they'll break down that system for them. They'll break down, they'll say, well, how long, what do you do once you get a lead? And they find out that the time between getting the lead and some of them don't even get on the phone with the lead, or booking a call, which might be too far out. Like their system's broken right there, where a lot of automation, if we just put it into place with certain tagging, a lot of CRMs will do the tagging for you. And having everyone that needs to play a role in this process playing it, and having email sequences built out or text SMS built out, those will help increase your conversion rate drastically. And I know this sounds overwhelming. Please don't let it sound overwhelming, because there's a lot of people who specialize in this area, and even a simple automation can get you really far.
You bring up a really good point, which is not only the speed at which you respond when somebody inquires, so fills out a form, and then how quickly is that phone ringing, right? But also the numbers of follow-ups I think there was a study I looked at that over a course of 21 days, the number of follow-ups that occurred through multiple channels, not just email, but also phone or elsewhere, direct mail as well, right? Increased exponentially the opportunity to close that sale. And so automation is doing a lot of the heavy lifting as you've described. It really can be very powerful. And so, I thank you for walking us through that, because um, somebody listening should think about, how can I invest in increasing conversions? And automation is an obvious, from our vantage point, a very obvious answer.
Yes. And I know a lot of service-based businesses, just like mine, use project management tools like Asana or Trello or similar things. There's automation tools in there. So you can start tagging your team as people go through the sequences. There's automation in CRMs. There's Zapier. There's if this, then that. There's so many ways that you can automate things. I promise, if you're thinking to yourself, can this be automated? Someone has come up with a solution for it. I promise it exists.
Yes. And to your point, if this sounds overwhelming, find somebody who can help you. Well, you happen to be one of those somebodies, particularly in the e-commerce space. How can folks learn more about the work that you do, and who you do it for whom you do it? I just heard my grandmother correcting my grammar in my head there. And so, where can people go to learn more?
Well, thank you. I would love to connect with anyone who wants to learn more about growing their e-commerce business online. We serve elite e-commerce brands that are usually in the seven-figure plus range, but I have so many free resources for you. I have a passion about helping others build their business. And luckily, I have the weirdest name in the world, Toccara Karizma. So lucky me, that name was not taken on any platform. So whether you go to toccaracharisma.com or any social media platform or LinkedIn or YouTube, whatever, you can always find me under Toccara Karizma, and the agency is Charisma Marketing. And you get $100 if you spell it right on the first try.
And you'll be able to track their typing on their browser when they do that. So excellent.
I absolutely am tracking it all. I promise you.
You have no idea what sort of spy tools are out there, folks. Anyway, it is toccaracharisma.com or charismamarketing.com. We'll make sure to link both of those in the show notes. Toccara Karizma, thank you so very much for joining me today. This has been a fabulous conversation.
Thank you, David. I had so much fun.
Indeed. Folks, you've been listening to More Perfect Marketing. If you know somebody who could benefit from listening to the conversation you just heard, please share this with them. Until next time, see you soon. Bye-bye.